Shalom. Welcome to the Language of the Prophet series from HebrewLiteracy.com. This is our Aliyah yomi, the Aliyah of the day, or daily Aliyah. We are on Torah portion Vayishlach, and today we'll be discussing the first Aliyah. Today's Aliyah takes place in Sefer Bereshit, chapter 32, verse 4 through verses 13. Let's get started. Verse Dalet. And remember, Dalet is 4. Vayishlach Yaakov malachim lefanav Elisav achiv. Okay, this is our etnach or atnach or etnachta, however your tradition calls it, which marks the end of the clause. So we'll stop there and we'll begin to translate. So shalach, you should know this word. Shalach is to send. It's quite famously when Avraham Avinu in the Akedah, it says Vayishlach Avram et yado. He sent his hand out. Right? He's got the machelet, the butchering knife in his hand. In that case, he sends his hand out. But shalach can mean many things. This is the word that can be used in the PL, signifying to send a woman out in divorce, or to send someone out of your land, like the Pharaoh did to Avram in banishment. Anyway, this is the imperfect form. You see, Yishlach, with the yod here at the beginning, this is one of the markers for the third person, masculine, imperfect. I don't know if I said imperative by accident, I mean imperfect. And so the imperfect is used to express continuous time. So oftentimes it will be a present tense translation into English, or a future tense. The idea is that it's imperfect, it's not been completed yet. It's not sanctioned as fulfilled prophecy, sealed and unchangeable, for example. So Yishlach means he will send, but as you guys have grown accustomed to, I hope by now, unless you're just joining the series, depending on where you are with your Tanachit Dikduk, your biblical Hebrew grammar, this is a vav consecutive, vav conversive, etc. form. So the vav changes the time. So Yishlach, while that probably means he will send, Vayishlach means and he sent. For those of you into more advanced scholarly, it's the Vayiktol form, right? So it's actually, technically it's not that the vav is changing time, this is just a much older form that was an archaic Hebrew that survived, but it's worth it to us to think of the vav as changing. So please don't, if you're a linguist, don't hit me with the comments, it's not really changing the time, it's just an older form. Yeah, we're just trying to expose enough practical grammar so everyone can understand without getting too deep into morphology. Okay, so I'll probably translate this. Then Yaakov sent malachim. So what's a malach? What's a malach? We've discussed the malach Hashem before, the angel of the Lord, which is in most likelihood pre-incarnate Mashiach. But a malach simply means messenger. It means a messenger. That's a malach, the singular form. And it can mean angel when the angel's task is as a messenger, right? There's different tasks that angels are given. And when it is to be a messenger or to do some simple service on earth for Hashem, then it's a malach. And so the reason it's always often thought of as angels is because, well, probably, in Septuagint this gets translated as angeloi, right? So from the singular angelos, right? You can see what that sounds like. It's an angel, right? That's where we get angel from, is from the Greek for messenger. Now it's interesting. I guess I'll finish translating, then we'll come back to it. So then Yaakov sent messengers, or angels, lefanav, before him, el Esau, unto Esau, achiv, his brother. So Rashi comments on this, making note of the Mikrot Gedolot. He says, look, it says, Vayishlach Yaakov malachim. He says, malachim mamash, right? This means like real angels, right? Like really angels. He's quoting from Bereshit Rabbah, the very popular and fairly accurate Midrash, Bereshit Rabbah, from the Midrash Rabbah series. And so what he means by mamash, he means they actually were angelic beings, that Yaakov Avinu was given authority over them, which is interesting, since we know that all of us who persevere and run the race and make it to the end, and don't give in to the dark side, that we will eventually have charge over angels, which was probably the reason the Nachash was jealous of us in the first place. So that's interesting. It's a little strange that it says before him. Before him. It's not necessary to express the concept. Obviously, the messengers, if he's sending them, they're not staying behind him, right? So there's something to be gained maybe by investigating that. Why is it before him? Why exactly did they have to go in front of him? And I could recommend there's some interesting teaching on this by the Orach Chaim, and I'm not going to get into it today. It's quite involved. Well, there's kind of a more simple, and then there's a more involved. He talks about three things and three different spiritual levels and things that are happening. But if you get a chance, check out the Orach Chaim's discussion on this. El Esau, unto Esau, Achiv, his brother. So the fact that he sent messengers is a little bit strange. Again, Bereshit Rabbah, according to Nachmanides, it thinks that that the proverb, the Mishlei 26:17, is talking about, in this case, Yaakov. It says, it warns about one who grabs a dog by the ears, right? The idea is the dog's passing by. It says, I think it's like, it says, Hakelev Over. Right? While the dog is passing by, he grabs it by the ears, right? One who grabs it by the ears. And so, Nachmanides goes on to explain why Bereshit Rabbah is tagging Yaakov Avinu as this one that Proverbs is talking about. Is he says Esau's minding his own business, and you insist on sending him a message, right? Like why bother him? Just go on your own way, right? But so he's got a bit of a point there. Like rather the Bereshit Rabbah does, right? But Nachmanides, he later clears him up. He explains that in Nachmanides' perspective, the whole thing is hinting about our downfall, how the downfall of the Jewish people. Of course, he's writing from a perspective before we had our nation back, right? Before the resurrection of Israel, which we've seen in this generation, and the resurrection of lashon haqodesh, the Holy Tongue is alive again, right? Which nobody expected. They had almost given up, right? 2,000 years with this hope. L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim, and now it's actual reality. So, from Nachmanides' perspective, where we're not living in the land, he's in the Galut, he's in the diaspora, he says, this whole episode hints about our downfall, beginning with Edom, right? The descendants of Esau. And so, he points out that the kings of the Second Temple period, they made an agreement with the Romans. And so if you're studying Nachmanides, that might not be too clear what he's talking about, but there's this kind of rabbinical view that Rome is Edom somehow, that somehow Edom ended up, they certainly had alliance with them, right? Herod was appointed by Rome, and Herod was as wicked as they get, right? He killed Yochanan, the immerser, right? So there's definitely at least a spiritual element of brotherhood between Rome and Edom. All right. And there's another sage, I can't remember who actually excuses Yaakov's, actually I think a couple of them, his action of sending messengers, and he says, look, the geographic path that he had to take towards Haran, when he's going back to Canaan, he has to pass through Edomite territory. And so because of that, surely Esau would have been alerted. So it was best to strike for peace first. And Esau, and we're told that also Yaakov has three things in mind. He's either three things he's doing, right? So first, he's sending messengers and gifts. 2, he's praying. And 3, he's ready for war if he has to, right? So he's, one way or another, he's not going to let his family be slaughtered. And part of the reason, Chizkuni points out that there's this peril going by the land of Seir, and why Seir is mentioned is because Esau, he actually inherited this land when he married Aholibama. That's according to Chizkuni. You can reference chapter 36, verse 2, and verses 20 from that chapter. Continuing on. The second half of the verse, Atsa Seir Sedei Edom. Okay, so here we have the hey locative. That's that hey at the end, right? So this word is eretz, and eretz is, as I mentioned before, it's a segelit, right? So segolits are nouns which have 2 segols in a row. All right. So segol are these three dots, the short sound. And not the longer tseri, but the shorter segol, Okay, if you can see that. So for example, melech, right? The word melech, this is a segolet. I'm not going to write the vowels now because I just wrote them up above. You can imagine them on the end. Melech, right? So if I wanted to say my king, I say malki, right? When I put the suffix on the end, of course the kaf change. Ow! Sorry, I have a cat here jumping on me. No. We have, when we put the suffix on the end, then this becomes ah here, right? So you see the same thing happening here. Eretz becomes ah when we add the suffix on the end. In this case, the helacative. The direction towards the land of Seir. Sedei, this is like the field of Edom. Okay, verse Hey, which is 5. Vayatzahav otam lemoho ko tomohun ladoni le'esau. Pardon me, le'esau. Okay, is that? So this is, you should recognize Vayitzav, it's related to mitzvah, right? So this is to command. Tzav is to give a command. And of course, it's imperfect, so it's future, but then we have the vav conversive, making it past. So then, or so, he commanded otam, this is them. So if you know your pronominal suffixes, there's am, that's them, connected to et, this is et, it becomes ot when you put a suffix on the end. So he commanded them, lemor, saying, kol tomurun, ladoni le'esau, so, or such, tomarun, you shall say, and you notice the noon here I've colorized? This is the paragogic noon, it's called. So, it's not necessary. He could have said ko tomeru. So, there's some scholarly debate about this, but there's some general consensus that often it's used to mean an exclamation point, right? It's like, it's emphasis, it's emphatic, we would say. So, you should bring that about in your translation and your understanding somehow. I think he says it this way to make sure the servants listen carefully to the exact words that I'm saying. If any of you have ever tried to tell someone to do something, an employee or an underling at work or something, and there might be certain personalities that you realize you have to be very specific, write it down, repeat it back to me what I'm saying, right? You got to make sure that they're understanding exactly, precisely what you want done. There's other times when be creative, just get it done, right? Be yourself. That's part of why, I like you, right? But here he's putting the there, the n. He's saying, do exactly as I say. So shall you say exactly ladoni to adoni. So adon means what? Master. The e at the end is the pronominal suffix meaning my, and the la is to, right? And you have this phenomenon here where Adoni is actually spelled with a chataf patach. So there's a patach, it's a composite schwa, right? There's a little schwa marker there. And so the reason the lamed has the patach here is because you cannot start the word with two schwas in a row, right? Usually when we attach a lamed, or a beit, or a kaf to the front of the word, we first try to see if we can do it with a schwa, right? Okay. But not allowed when you have two schwas in a row at the beginning of the word. That's what's happening here. So in the case of composite schwas, like chataf patach, what happens is the first one takes on whatever vowel sound the other composite schwa has. So in this example, the vowel sound, you see him right there? It's the patach. It's the patach, right? And so that is what's going to go under the lamed. The vocal schwa lengthens to that sound because it's easier to say that way than le-ah, no. So it's just more natural speech to say la. And the aleph here is kiesing. So it has lost its consonantal properties, even though we no longer pronounce aleph. It used to be pronounced. And it's just a placeholder now for all practical purposes, so that we know what the word is. So ladoni, to my Lord. There's no definite article here, okay? So don't get confused. Hey, Rabbi, you said not to put a suffix on something with a definite article. There's no definite article, right? This is not the patach from the definite article. If it were, it would be a comment. It'd have to lengthen because the aleph can't take a dagesh. All right? Okay. Le to Esau. Ko amar avdecha Yaakov im levan gati vaycha ad ata. Okay. Such said, so this is the message that they have to get right. The noon is pointing over here saying, say this message right. These are the exact words I want you to say. That's why we got that paragogic noon there, I think. Such said Avdecha. So again, segel it, just like the example up here. That's why Eved, with two segols, Eved became Avdecha, right? So this rule here also applies to this word. Okay, beautiful. So with the cha, pronominal suffix at the end. To your servant, Yaakov. So your servant Yaakov said this. Im levan gati va'echa ad atta. Okay. With Lavan, and this word might be a little bit hard for you to recognize. The gati, it's from the verb gul. Gul. So let's have a look here. So the root is actually gimel, and then there's a vav in the middle. Vav. Okay, purple might not have been the right choice. We'll go back to green. Vav, reish. So that's the root. Gimel, vav, reish. And there are actually two words that both look identical. There's gul, which means to sojourn, and there's gul, which means to be terrified. So I don't think he's saying, with Laban, I was terrified. Okay, so I think it's safe to go with the I sojourned, right? This is where we get the word ger from. When the Torah says, Torah achat, you shall have one Torah for the Ezrach, for the native born, and for the ger, the sojourner who is with you. So in this case, with Laban, I sojourned. Va'echar. Okay, and this verb is related to the word acher, like other, you probably have, right? Or acher, later. So we'll say, the Torah oftentimes will say, achrei hadarim ha'ele, after these things, such and such happened. But this is the verb. So, echar means I will be late, I will delay, I will tarry, right? I'll be there for a while. And then we have our vav consecutive here. So this changes it to be, and I was delayed, ad, until, atta, now. Again, we have the saluk. For those of you who are real grammar nuts, that's the reason the vowel has lengthened here. We have the patach lengthening to a kametz. Atta, right? So in ancient times, it would have sounded something like Ko amar abdecha Yaakov im lavan galti vaycha ad atta, right? This word has special emphasis. Okay? Continuing on to verse Vav, 6. Vahilihi shoho v'chamoho tzon ve'eved ve'shivcha. Okay? So Yehi is there will be. There will be. Yes. But the Vav changes the time. So, and it was, or it came to be, or became, li to me. So, I gained is what it's saying. Shor, ox, vachamor, and donkey, tzon, sheep, ve'eved, and servant, ve'shivcha, and virgin female servant. Okay, so why are these in the singular, right? This is kind of, this in the Chazal, they talk about this a little bit, and several of them they discuss, and I think even Midrash Rabbah discusses it some, that these words sometimes are in singular and sometimes are in plural. And it's fine to use it that way. One of the sages, I wish I could give credit, I can't remember who, says that it's that he's using the singular form to downplay his wealth, right? So on the one hand, he doesn't want to appear militarily incapable, right? Look, I've got avadim, I have servants, right? But on the other hand, he doesn't want to shove it in Esau's face, right? Like we don't want to get any ayin hara, evil eye going on there. All right. Vayishlach lehagi ladoni limsochen be'einecha. Okay, shalach we have again. So we've already covered shalach. Shalach means what? Send. Okay. So the aleph at the beginning, this tells us it's short from ani or anochi, right? Ani. And it tells us that this is a first person, singular, right? Like ani, I, or anochi. And it's imperfect, so eshlach would mean I will send. Okay, we have a special thing happening at the end here. This hey shows us it's in the cohortative, which means it's kind of like in Espanol, a little upside down exclamation point, right? It's like, let me send. Right? So let me send, right? Or I will send. Okay? But we've got the Vav conversive here. So we're swapping the time. So, I'm going to translate that as so, I sent. Right? He's really excited with the speech here. Lehagid. You might have trouble recognizing this verb. It's a pei nun verb, so that means it starts with a nun. And the nun has gone inside the gimel. You see that dot? That's telling us there's a nun inside me. I'm 2 gimels now because I ate him up, I absorbed him. So, siel gimel. So, lehagid, so to tell, to relate. This is related to the Haggadah, right? We get on Pesach, the telling, right, of the story. To tell, ladoni, to my Lord, to my master, limso, so that find chen, favor, be'einecha. Okay, so this is in your einayim, in your eyes. So whenever you put a suffix on a word, you put the word first in the construct state, and then you put the suffix on the end, right? So originally it would have been einay, eyes of cha, of you, right? And then it combined over time, einecha. Yeah, so in your eyes or in your sight is also fine in translation if you want to make it like this. And so it's something to think about. There's a question that's posed by Rav Abarbanel. He says, what is the purpose for Yaakov considering to tell Esau that he had stayed with Lavan and acquired oxen and donkeys and sheep and servants and female servants? Why did he think that would gain the favor of Esau, right? Because he says, I told him to tell you all these things, la 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 la, la la la, lehagid ladoni, limso, so that finding grace. This is an infinitive. Limso is to find, right? Or to catch, but that's not what it means in this case. So think about that. Maybe there's something in Abarbanel's question there that you might find useful in your own drashot or Dvar Torah that you might be doing. Okay, Zion. Vayashuvu hamalachim el Yaakov lemoho. Our etnachta there. So this verb is a hollow verb, meaning it has a vav in the middle. Right? So the vav has disappeared. You might not recognize what it is, but we still have a hint about it's actually the shurik, right? That's from the vav, but we have a hint of it here, captured in the kibbutz, right? So shuv, like returned, like shuv ami, return my people, or teshuvah, making repentance, returning. So yashuvu means they will return, or they are returning, something like that, okay? But when we take the vav conversive to swap the time, we don't take present, because what's the opposite of present? There is no, right? We take the opposite of future. So then they returned. Who returned? Hamalachim, the angels, or the messengers, depending how you want to view that, right? Human messengers or angelic messengers. El Yaakov, unto Yaakov, Lemor, saying, Banu el achicha el Esav, vegam holech lekatecha, ve'arba meot ish imo. So ba, like Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, hallelujah, right? Like many know that song. So banu, the nu, tells us it's us, right? So we came, el, unto achicha, unto ach, his brother, cha is unto your brother, el, unto Esau, vegam, and also holech. So this is from halach, this is the active participle. So also he was coming. And I know you might have a translation that says is coming. It's okay. That still implies what's happening. But Banu is the perfect, so it puts it in the past for us, right? So we came. So an an active participle, it agrees in time with whatever the stage is set for the sentence. So more accurate is, and also he was coming, right? So he probably had already heard, is kind of the nuance that's caught, which is missed in a translation that says he is coming, right? If they wanted to say he is coming, they could have put this in the imperfect, right? And they could have said Yahaloch, right, or Yachloch, or Yelech. Okay, so Holech, he was coming likchatecha, to meet cha, you. And this is a bit of a scary word because oftentimes it means to meet in battle, right? Not always. In the case of Aaron, when he goes out to meet in the desert, Moshe Rabbeinu, it's also the same thing. He went out to meet him in the desert, right? So it's not always militarily. But here's what makes it sound militarily. You getting ready? Here comes the military sounding part. The Arba Me'ot Ish Imo. Ouch. And 400 man with him, literally is what it means, right? So you can do that. You can just say man. Hebrew will do this sometimes, like we saw the example of the sheep, the tzon, and the chamor, and the donkey, and the oxen, and all this stuff. So it'll do this. The cattle, it'll put it in singular. You can do this. It's proper speech. There's nothing weird going on. There might be a nuance that's hinted, but so there's at the head of 400 men, right? Something like that with him. So yeah, now it's getting a little bit scary. Now it's not a great time to be Yaakov Avinu. And Ibn Ezra actually supports my point that I'm making on this. Ibn Ezra, in the Mikrot Gadol, he points out that what the servants are saying is he himself is coming to meet you. In other words, he'd already been informed that you're on your way. So that's what I thought the text actually was hinting at. And then I checked, and sure enough, Ibn Ezra complements it. So I think this is a confirmation that we should definitely translate the holech as past tense here. He was coming, past progressive. He's coming. He was coming. I guess the idea is if he was coming, he still is, right? So you're not on terrible ground if you want to say something like that. Yeah. And Abarbanel comments that it seems that the malachim, the messengers or the angels, did not even make it to Seir because they encountered Esau along the way. So that is another confirmation of what I'm talking about, right? So Abarbanel also sees it because of this active participle, right? This is why grammar is so important. The grammar, again, I know we're doing inductive learning, so it's okay if you don't understand it all. No problem, it's okay. But you can understand also that the grammar is worthy of learning because it gives us these, you'll get just a gut feeling. If you're just doing inductive, you can get just a gut feeling, right? Like, I did Greek to some extent this way. Like, when I was learning Greek, I first went through in grammar, and then I'd forget it. And then some years later, grammar, and then I'd forget it, And then finally, vocab, and then it was more interesting because I could read. But then I just plowed into it, like I'm hoping you're doing with the Aliyah yomi. Just getting in the text, swimming in the text, and you start to develop kind of an intuition about what is being said, because your brain, it's keeping this in the back, your mind, your neshama, also since it's lashon haqodesh, and it's starting to, or about holy things, and so it's starting. Don't mistake me. I'm not saying Greek is lashon haqodesh, but it's about holy things, right? So you'll start actually to get a feeling for what is correct, and over time you'll get the betachon, the confidence to trust that instinct, right? But for the meantime, grammar is there to back you up, right? So these little grammar points, they can help. Okay, so holech, this is the active participle. Shomer is I am ani, shomer, I am protecting. Ani holech, I am walking, etc. Okay, verse chet. Vayira Yaakov me'od, vayetzer lo. And that's our etnachta. That is our end of the clause marker. Sorry for the delays. I'm dealing with a very affectionate kitty, but his nails are so long. And I'm trying to keep him from biting my cable I'm recording with. So the verb here is easily recognized. Yara. You know yara, right? To fear. To fear. And this is an ample time to mention that when we talk about, we see in Mishlei that Reshit Chochma Yirat Adonai, right? The beginning of wisdom is fearing Hashem, right? That this, I do not personally believe this should be translated reverence. Like sometimes it gets softened down in English as reverence, right? We should have reverence for Hashem, but you should understand that there's not two separate words for this in Hebrew. There's not fear and reverence. Oh my gosh, this cat. There's not fear and reverence. There's just fear, right? So, yeah, we have many words for fear. We have pachad, yara, we have gul, right? And these they have a terror and these other sorts of things. But nevertheless, this is also used to fear men, like we see here, and it's used to fear God. So I think something is taken away from the understanding of what a relationship to God should be like when you kind of numb it a bit by saying reverence, right? Oh, we should translate that reverence. No. When you do that, you're injecting your worldview into the text instead of developing or refining our worldview from the text. Okay? All right, so continuing. So yira means he will be afraid, but va yira means and he was afraid. Who? Yaakov, the subject. That's our subject, right? How much? Me'od, exceedingly. Vayetze lo. Okay, so this is interesting. We have the Masoretes have decided to put the etnachta here. I would have thought it would have come here, but it's interesting. So let's see what they've got here. So he's very scared, and this verb is hard to recognize. This is a geminate, which means there's a duplicated letter. It's tzarar. Tzarar. Actually, I think I have a note here. Let me put it up. Yeah. This is tzarar 1, which in the call means to wrap up, to envelop, and has these different meanings. To be restricted, right? Intransitively. To be hampered, like your footsteps or your strides, right? Like you don't have a lot of options, right? And they even, this is from Halot, the premier scholarly lexicon for Tanachit, which incorporates Ugaritic data and other types of data. Sometimes it looks at Aramaic and other cognate languages. Very, very, very top-notch lexicon. If you can afford it, I highly recommend you get one because Brown Driver Briggs it's decent, but it's old. It's outdated. It's before we understood there was a language closer to Hebrew than any other language, which is Ugaritic, right? And we always thought Aramaic was the closest language, and it just turns out that's not so. It's Ugaritic. And so this incorporates all that scholarly data. Also, if you don't want a language based on a dictionary based on cognate data like other languages, then DCH is the one for you. That's Klein's 9-volume dictionary of biblical Hebrew. Well, it's 8 volume, and the 9th volume is Aramaic, right? For the corpus of Hebrew literature up until post-biblical Hebrew, which is like Dead Sea Scrolls stuff, right? It doesn't get into rabbinical Hebrew, medieval Hebrew, that kind of stuff. It's just, or modern Hebrew. That's just Dead Sea Scrolls stuff. Yeah, if you want one that does like the whole gamut of the language, it's not going to be as thorough, right? But there's a nice dictionary that's out of print now, also by Klein. This is a different Klein, right? By Dr. Rabbi Klein, who supposedly was fluent in 40 languages, just really, and he was a Holocaust survivor. I think he died in the 80s, something, but anyway, rest in peace. So you got some options, right? So Halot, this is highly recommended, highly expensive, but highly recommended. DCH is also not cheap. DCH, their belief is that Hebrew should be interpreted by Hebrew, right? So they don't lean on Aramaic or except in the Aramaic volume, right? Aramaic interpreted by Aramaic, or Ugaritic or any of this other stuff. So it's nice to have the two different opinions sometimes. Or it can mean to be depressed or worried. So I think really what's happening here, by juxtaposing tzara with yareh, to be scared and to be like constrained or hampered, it's expressing some kind of hendiadic function, right? The two are, he's scared and he feels he's got no options, is what it's expressing here, right? Or as Halot, they kind of put it together that he became anxious, right? They call out our exact verse here. He became fearful, he became anxious, right? But then I don't think fearful is good because he was scared and then he became fearful, right? He was very scared and anxious, right? Or felt hampered is good. Okay? Vayachatz et ha'am asher ito ve'et hatzon ve'et habakar ve'hagamalim lishnei machanot. Okay. So what's this word? Vayachatz. Kind of hard to recognize. This is a lamed hey verb. So it's got a hey at the end. This should, if any of you who do like the kiddush, you should know there's the chatzi kiddush, right? The half kiddush. So this is a verb from that, meaning to divide, right? Chatza is the verb, and it's to divide. So this lamed, you could say and. I think so is more appropriate, but whatever. It's English nuance. So he divided the people who ito, with him. Eat means with. Don't eat the people with you. Okay. Ve'et hatzon, and also the flock, like the sheep, and the bakar, the cattle, the bovids, the hagamalim, and the camels. Lishnei, to two machanot, camps. Okay, and this is kind of interesting here. It's interesting because previously we have machanayim, right, 2 camps, right, which is masculine, and now we have machanot, feminine plural ending of camps. So it's interesting that the text, this word can be expressed as masculine or as feminine, right? There are some Hebrew words like this that sometimes they're masculine, sometimes they're feminine, or sometimes there's even different forms, right? For example, Yeshua and Yesha, right? They both have to do with victory, salvation, that kind of thing. One is masculine, one is feminine, right? And so this can happen, but it's kind of strange here that we have this in in plural feminine here. So, and also, I would say, grammatically, I would have expected the dual form, right? Why did it say literally, it says to two camps, right? The dual, the ayim ending that we have that indicates dual, that's usually what happens in Tanachit. But and he's done it before. Jacob, when he's in Bethel, he talks about machanayim, right? And so, what is happening here? Why does the text have these extra words? This might be something for those of you who like to dig, and investigate. Maybe tell me, dig and find out. Tell me. I think the text, there's nothing superfluous and there's nothing accidental in the text. So maybe it's for gematria reasons, right? I'm not a big fan of gematria, but when there's something like this that happens where it's not necessary for the text to word it this way, then I think there might be some sod meaning happening there that's worth finding. Yeah. And there's something I forgot to mention. Abarbanel comments that Yaakov was frightened of Esau and distressed about the 400 men, right? That's why we have the frightened and distressed, right? But it wasn't because he didn't have emunah, okay? Abarbanel makes the point that it's like someone who wants to eat chazer, he wants to eat pig, right? But he stops because it's forbidden. Yaakov Avinu's emunah be'Elohim was that he had the promise to him already. It helped him to overcome this physical fear, right? When you say someone's brave, wow, that guy's so brave, that soldier's so brave, right? The Navy SEAL, the Ranger, whatever, this guy was so brave, he went into this battle. Look, bravery doesn't mean you're not scared, right? In my mind, it's brave because you are scared, right? Because we are frightened, because we are nervous to do the right thing, yet we still do it, right? And so it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, Abarbanel's comment about not eating pork because you might want it and you don't, but your faith helps you to overcome it. But still, it's apropos if you extend it out. He was fearful, but he didn't give in to the fear, right? And it's interesting, Abarbanel, he's one of these guys, Jerusalem and Athens, right? Like, if you listen to Ben Shapiro, he likes to talk sometimes about Jerusalem and Athens. We take the logic and the reason that the Greeks developed, and we take the faith and the prophets that were given to us by Hashem in Israel, and together we can really build a great system of interpreting. And so Abarbanel continues, he's one of these. He says, as Aristotle mentions in Ethics, correct bravery is not because of the absence of fear, but because the choice one makes to continue on even though they are afraid. See, that's like I was saying. In point of fact, there are many situations, many examples daily that a person must make themselves drink some disgusting medicine, right, that he knows in his mind is actually good for his body. And this is what we find oftentimes in obeying mitzvot, right? The Bechor Shor comments that what happens with dividing up the flocks, it's kind of clear that he's taking a protective action so that Esau would not necessarily recognize as one, right? So by dividing the camps, it's a strategy of, look, he's protecting himself, it's strategic, but it doesn't appear so on the surface because Esau's not going to know there's more camps coming at first, right? He'll just see the one. So if he decides to attack, he might think it's full force, and then Yaakov is smart. He realizes, okay, the attack is happening, now I'll fight, right? You see, instead of alarming him and saying that he's expecting an attack, it's kind of like if you've ever dealt with a wild dog, right? Or the way that you respond to the dog emotionally will oftentimes determine whether he bites you or not, right? If you're like, oh, you're running around scared, the dog's like, why is he scared of me? And then it slips into its kind of imprinted reaction. Usually when something is running scared, I'm chasing, so it gets chased, right? But if you're confident and you're just walking, you almost ignore the dog, oftentimes the dog just even stops barking. It's like, oh, okay, there's something about him. I better not mess with that guy, right? And so I think this is kind of what Bechor Shor is saying. By sending first a smaller camp, Esau has no idea. He didn't have a drone flying around to see that there's more coming behind. That's all, right? So it's very clever. So we can learn from Yaakov Avinu the very important action that in life we take faith, but we also use seichel, we use intelligence, right? We use our mind. We do both, right? It's Jerusalem and Athens, right? So it's nice. Abarbanel continues on that Yaakov Avinu, he put Ha'am, the people, his Nashav, his wives, and his children, in the camp which was on the opposite side of the river. And the livestock were on the side where he thought Esau was approaching from. So the idea is that if he attacks, the people will be protected, right? So he's still trying to save his people. And there's actually some comment, I don't have a lot of time to get into it, but there's some comment among Chazal where Yaakov understood that it would be possible for Esau to obliterate even all of his children, and God could still keep his promise that I will, I'll make many nations out of you. I mean, I'll make you as numerous as the sands of the seashore and the kochavei hashemayim, the stars of the sky, right, etc. But he didn't want that to be the case, right? But you could also counter this with the fact that God also promised that he would shemor, he would protect Yaakov. So, okay, continue on. Verse 9. Vayomer im yavo Esau el hamachane ha'achat v'hikahu. Okay, so he said, this is more like he reasoned, you could say, right? He's thinking, if yavo, so this is again, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, right? So this is imperfect, right? It's got the yod, so this is signifying usually continual action, so usually that's going to be future in English. If Esau will come, el, unto, hamachane ha'achat, so here's our noun, and then the adjective is ha'achat, okay? So this is the feminine form of echad, right? Like every day you say twice, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem echad, right? That's masculine because it's Hashem, he's echad. Well, hamachane, here we're using the feminine form of the word, so adjectives must agree with nouns in number, and in gender, and in definiteness. So we have, here's the agreement in gender. Achat is the feminine form. Machane is the feminine form. Here's the agreement in number is the ha at the beginning. So the and the. So there we go. Hamachane ha'achat. The one camp. So unto the one camp. So if Esau comes to the one camp, the hikahu, this is very hard to recognize if you're just not familiar with seeing this. So I'll definitely make sure to spell this one out for you. So the verb here, this is nacha. It's a pei nun verb. Okay. So the nun, there he is in the kaf. Okay. And this hu, this is the pronominal suffix hu, right? It's not part of the verb. It's not part of the root. Okay. So you might be saying, okay, wow, so look, you only have one letter left from the three root letters. That's why it's hard. I remember in my youth forcing myself through the Torah, and I came to, not this example, but somewhere in the Torah, where it says, it might even be this one, but it's this verb, right? And he struck, or and he whatever, and I'm thinking, what in the world is this verb? Because the noon is gone and the hay is gone, right? I think the example I was looking at, maybe it was vayik or something like that, and so it didn't have the hu at the end, right? Here you might think, oh, maybe the hay is from the verb itself, but it's not. So it's a pei nun verb and it's a lamed hay verb, right? So you got the noon at the beginning to assimilate, and you have the hay at the end that fell away. He's gone. He left. This hay is the suffix hu, him. So the hikahu, and he strikes it, right? He attacks it. V'haya hamachane hanish'a lifleta. Okay. Then the camp, hanish'ar, this is the remaining camp, right? The remaining camp will lifleta. It's like will be refugee. It's kind of what that means, right? A palita is a refugee, or palit. Like we have in the example where there's the narrative about Lot gets captured, right? And it says that the refugee comes to Abraham and to Avram, and he tells him what happened. All right. Verse Yod 10. Vayomer Yaakov Elohei Avi Avraham Ve'Elohei Avi Yitzchak. Then Yaakov said, and now we're going to have a construct chain here. I'll put it in blue. Elohei Avi. Okay. So the absolute word Avi, what is this? So it's from Av, like Abba, right? Av. The yod at the end is a suffix, so it's my Av, my father, right? So since it's my, it makes the whole chain definite, which means we must translate the into the first word. Okay. So, and I'm going to put this in the vocative. Oh, God of my father. Oh, the God of my father, Avraham. So he's clarifying who the father is, even though it's grandfather. Ve'Elohei Avi Yitzchak, and the God of my father. Now his more recent father, Yitzchak. Adonai, Haomer Elahai, Shuv Ve'artzecha u'lemoladtecha ve'etiva imach. O Adonai, the one who said unto me. So this is an active participle. When you put a hey in front of an active participle, it's the same as putting asher. Those of you who've studied modern Hebrew, you're probably more used to just saying she. Like, I don't know if you could say she omer or something like this, right? They'll just say she. It's short for asher. This doesn't develop in the Bible until the Nach, the later prophets, that we can use she in this way. So the way that the Torah Hebrew does it is it takes a definite article, ha. So ha omer. So it's kind of like the one who said, right? Which is really what we mean when we say who said. Who said, Eli, unto me, shuv, return. This is an imperative, a command. Shuv, le'atzecha, to your eretz. Again, segelet. That's why it's spelled that way. Atzecha, and the moladtecha, to your motherland, right? Or it could mean to your kin also, right? The etiva imach, and I will deal bountifully, right? Like I will make it, the tiv here, I've mentioned before, I don't know if you guys remember, that sometimes in Hebrew morphology, without getting into all the rules, sometimes a waw, an ancient waw, can be exchanged for a yod in certain spellings, right? So if you know that, then you recognize this is the verb coming from tov, right? This is a he-fil form from the verb coming from tov, is what has really happened here. So I will make tov, right? And here's the hey, this is in the cohortative, right? So it's actually, it's an exclamation point, right? So he's reminding God basically, and really he's doing this for his own faith, right? Again, it's not brave if you're not scared and you go into battle, right? That's just stupid. But if you're scared a little bit and you still go, that's brave, right? So he's building up his own kavanah, right? This is an example of what we should do when we're fearful and we're praying and we're dealing with situations. We should follow the Ish Tam, the perfect man's example, who is Yaakov Avinu. Ve'etiva imach. You said that I will deal well, exclamation point, im, with cha, you. And the reason it's imach instead of imacha, it's a pausal deal. We have the siluk here. Sorry, I kind of drew over the stuff, but okay, fine, we'll just leave it. You get the idea. Yeah, so he demonstrates what a tzaddik do, right? This is the way that we should remind ourselves. He's not really so much reminding God as much as he's reminding himself. Okay? And this is the last slide. Sorry if it's gone long. It's hard to decide what to talk about and what not to talk about. I want to make sure to give you an interesting and not just purely grammatical walkthrough. So verse Yod Aleph, this is 11. Katonti mikol hachasadim umikol ha'emet asher asitza et avdecha. Pardon me, avdecha. All right, end of clause marker there. So katan is to be small. So I am so small. I'm smaller. Mikol, from all. Hachasadim. Okay, so we have actually a construct chain there. We have kol is in the construct, and chasadim. Hachasadim is in the absolute, and because we have a ha there, that makes the whole thing ha, right? So from all the, although with all, you don't have to say the all in English, so that's why we don't have to translate it that way. But look here, the mem, this is mean, right? You know mean? Mean, okay, over here, mean meaning from, mean. At the very least, you probably know the bracha, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem mi'haaretz, right, on Shabbat at least. It's kind of funny in Israel, I saw a show one time, and they were kind of making fun of the American Jews, like, because a lot of American Jews are Reform or whatever, and all they know is the blessing for the bread or something like that. Not making fun of you if you're Reformed, if that's your background. I'm just saying it was funny to see in modern Hebrew in the show. They got some Americans there and like, look at my Hebrew, I could say the hamotzi. And Israelis are like, okay. All right, anyway, from all of the chasadim. So chasadim are like kindnesses, the kind acts. So he's saying, katonti mikol hachasadim, I am too small, like I'm unworthy, is really what he's expressing, right? And there's some discussion among the sages that he's concerned that Hashem has already used up all the merit from the good things he's done, and now he's not going to help him. Or really, there's a lot of comments among the sages that really what's happening is he's worried that he might have had some error, right? Some accidental sin that he's not aware, that he doesn't remember, like the Psalms say, like shigayot miyavin, like accidents, errors. Who can understand like why they happen? Why we make accidental violations, right? Because a tzaddik is not going to intentionally do a sin, right? So the question is, if you accidentally did it, then maybe Hashem will be mad at me, right? He's not going to help me out right now. He'll still keep his promise, but in a way that I might lose a couple kids or something, right? So he's saying, I'm not worthy even for all of the kindnesses, the good things, mikol ha'amet, and all of the truth, asher asita, which you have done. Probably these two things are functioning again, hendatically, right? There's probably some kind of extra meaning here, like all of the continual kindnesses. That might be a way I would translate that. Which asita, this is hard to see, it's a lamed hey verb. Asita, asa, which you have done et avdecha, to your servant. Nachmanides calls this out. The way of the righteous is to live in constant fear to sin. Yaakov was afraid that even after leaving Aram, he might have sinned by making a pact with Lavan, the idolater, or in some other way, right? We're not supposed to have dealings with idolaters, but he made a pact with him, right? And so he's worried that maybe that's what the sin is, according to Nachmanides. And Nachmanides calls out the psalm that I mentioned to you, the shugiyot miyavim, right? Accidents, errors, who can understand? Ministarot nakeni, and then the psalmist is praying, from hidden sins, purify me, right? Or secret sins, purify me. And now Yaakov goes on to continue about all of the chasadim from Hashem. Ki v'makli avarti et hayarden hazeh ve'ata hayiti lishnei machanot. Look, feminine now. Back to feminine. For with my staff, pronominal suffix, my staff, avarti. What's avar? You should know avar, right? There's a lot of exaggerated teachings out there about the reason that Abraham was called the Hebrews because he crossed over, right? Okay. Nope, Aver is the first Hebrew, and Abraham's an Ivri because he's descended from him, okay? So we do have other stuff about coming over and joining us and all this sort of stuff, but it's not just about, you don't change your race, for example, by changing location. So, Avarti, I crossed over et Hayarden Hazeh, this Jordan. The Atta, and now, Hayiti, I have become Lishnei Machanot, 2 camps. So I came over with nothing, just the staff in my hands, and part of the examples of your machanecha, of your chasadecha, is that you've given me even so much that I have 2 camps now. All right. Verse Yod Beit. Hatzileini na miyad achi, miyad Esau. So this Hatzileini, this is from Natsal. That's why the tzadi has the dagesh there. And this is a hefil form. And the ni is a suffix. That's me. And natsal means literally to snatch up, right? Like you're looking down on someone on the ground, and or an ant or whatever, and you snatch it up, right? This usually is translated rescue, right? Rescue me na. Na means please. Miyad, from the hand of achi, of my ach, my brother. Miyad, so again it's mean. And the nun we see has assimilated. That's why there's a dagesh in the yod. From, we have a construct chain also coming here. Okay, so why do I say from the hand? Because the absolute word is Esau. And Esau is a name, so that's a the, right? So it makes the whole chain definite. So from the hand of Esau. Ki yarei anochi oto. So now he's being honest with Hashem. I know I shouldn't be scared of anybody but you, but here's the fact. For yarei anochi, this is an active participle. I am scared oto of him. Pen yavo vehikani aim albanim. Okay, this pen is always hard to translate. It's kind of a pain. You know, it's like lest, like the older English says lest, right? So it's like, it's implying something that could happen. Coming into Septuagint Greek, this usually goes into the subjunctive mood, right? So if you're a Greek buff, just think of this as subjunctive, like unless, or this might happen. It might happen that, yavo, he comes, the hikani, again we have the nacha, the nun, peinun, and lamed hey. Here it's very clear that we only have one root letter left, you see? Nacha is the verb, right? And this is a hefil form, that he might strike me, not my knee, but me. Aim, mother, al Okay, all you probably learned that means on top of, but also means with, like together with banim, children. It's a very real fear, right, for a parent to have, that something could happen, that both his wives and also the children from his wives might be killed together. What a horrible thing. Verse Yod Gimel. Ve'ata amarta. Okay, so I'm going to do this piece by piece here. Ve'ata, but you, amarta. Amarta means you said, right? So we don't need the ata, you see? So your translation should not say, but you said, right? It has to be more than that. It has to be more. It has to be something like, but you yourself. And probably, it's probably not but, this vav. It could be, but it could be, I think it's probably the vav emphaticum, right? So it's like a little exclamation point. He's really getting excited about his speech now. Like in Espanol, you have the upside down exclamation point sometimes telling you to raise your tone when you read the sentence. But you yourself have said. And Mitchell Daoud in the Psalms makes a point that sometimes amar can actually mean promise, right? Which of course from Hashem, when he says it, it's a promise. But you yourself have promised. Heitiv, eitiv, imach. Okay, so heitiv, eitiv. What is going on here? This is what's called an infinitive absolute, all right? And when you have an infinitive absolute, basically what it means, when it's followed by the verb itself, these are both from the verb tov, right, to do well. Okay, there it is, there it is. They just look a little bit different. This is the he-fill, infinitive absolute, that's why there's the hey at the beginning. And this is the he-fill imperfect form, that's why we have the yod jammed in there before the last root letter, okay? That's not the vav become a yod, this is actually just from the he-fill form, okay? So, what happens is the absolute, when you put the verb in the infinitive absolute in the front, it means indeed, like definitely, right? Surely, right? Mot yumat, surely she'll be put to death, right? She'll be executed, right? In this case, heitev, eitiv, right? It should make you think of the Bichat Hamazon, right? The grace after meals, right? Who heitiv, who meitiv, who yetiv, yalanu, hu gbalenu, la'ad lached, lachasero rachamim. Oh, sorry, okay, sorry. Really nice. If you don't do the grace after meals, you might want to learn it. There's some really nice singing there. So I will definitely deal bountifully. I will definitely do well, do good, imach with you. He's reminding himself really of Hashem's words as he's praying to Hashem. V'samti et zar'acha kechol hayam asher lo yisafer merov. And I will place. Again, vav conversive. That's why it's I will place. Samti is I placed, v'samti is and I will place. I will set. Your zera. Okay, again, seglet. That's why it's zar'acha. Like your king, melech becomes malkacha. Malkacha. In this case, zar'acha, your offspring. Ke. This is inseparable preposition, kaf, like, chol hayam. We have another construct chain here. Chol hayam. Okay? Chol means sand. Yam is sea. And it's the sea, so the whole chain is like the sands of the sea. Asher, which, lo yisafer merov, which cannot be counted. This is actually a nifal binyan here. So I'm going to make the noon green. I don't know why I like to do green with nifal, but so in ancient Hebrew, this would have been yin. It would have been here, okay? Yin saper, yin safer. Pardon me. But yin saper over time is hard to say, and the noon made the samech double. Just like our in legal example, remember in plus legal became illegal to else. So yisafer, right? It's passive of to count, right? So, which are not countable, merov, because of their abundance, because of their number. May, this is mean, actually mean. So what happened is mean, he could have said mean rov if he wanted to. Mean. What happened is, short vowel, chirik, one dot there. The noon, he tries to go into the reish, to be a dagesh there. Reish doesn't take a dagesh because he's a pretender. He's a pretender to be like the Chet and Hate and Hey and all these others, and Aleph and Ayin, right? He's a pretender. And so what happens is the Dagesh then comes back down, and he lengthens the short vowel Chirik into long vowel Tseri. And the noon is gone because that's what became the lengthening. Mecho, from its abundance, from its great number. Bereshit Rabbah expands on this In the Midrash it says, Heitiv b'schut techa, Heitiv b'schut avotecha. It's a little bit, they're taking some liberties in the Midrash here. But they're saying that it wasn't necessary to use an infinite absolute. It's implying that the reason we have the repetition here, even though, they're not arguing with the Peshat meaning of it, but they're saying the first Heitiv means to do well, be-schut techa, because of your own merits, right? Schut is merit, right? Your merit, right? By means of your merit, I will do well to you. And the second, the Eitiv, from the same verb, Midrash Rabbah, the Midrash is hinting at b'schut avotecha, because of the merit of your ancestors, right? Because of Abraham and Yitzchak, I will do these good things for you and protect you. Okay, that's it for the first Aliyah of this Torah portion. If you have questions or comments, please write them down below and I'll try to reply. Bli neder. As always, keep up your Hebrew, be encouraged, you can do it, stick with it for a year and you will feel very, 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 very good about your Tanachit.